Thank you. Welcome and thank you for attending this stakeholder meeting for the Colorado Dental Board via webinar. Today is August 22nd, 2022, and the time is 10:01 a.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Darcy Magnuson, and I'm a regulatory analyst with the division. Also attending is Yukon Morford, Program Director, and Elena Kemp, Regulatory Coordinator. Due to concerns regarding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue to practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. The purpose of this stakeholder meeting is to discuss multiple proposed revisions to the board's rules to implement new legislation. More specifically, we will be discussing the draft rules to implement Colorado Senate Bill 22-116, concerning the ability of an individual to obtain an occupational credential through the Occupational Credential Portability Program, Colorado Senate Bill 22058, concerning the creation of a peer health assistance program for dental hygienists, Colorado Senate Bill 22219, concerning the regulation of dental therapists, Colorado House Bill 221115, concerning the prescription drug monitoring program, and Colorado House Bill 221284, concerning updates to state surprise billing laws to facilitate the implementation of surprise billing protections and aligning state law with the Federal No Surprises Act. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the board's website by the close of business on Monday. As this stakeholder meeting is held solely by webinar, please raise your hand using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your lines. You'll be heard by everyone. Or you can type your comment in the question section and we'll read it aloud. Before we start taking comments, we ask that anyone providing comments please state your name and the name of the organization you represent, if any. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 to 5 minutes and try not to repeat something that was already said. Stating you're in full agreement with someone else works just fine and will be noted. If you are using the audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you are using computer or phone audio, try to keep background noises to a minimum when speaking. So since we have, trying to think of the best way to go through these, the dental board rules are long. I think the best approach would be to raise your hand and then we can move directly to that portion of the rule. And then ask for additional feedback regarding that person's comments and then work through it that way and see how that goes. Otherwise, I hate to scroll through from the beginning to the end since the rules are so long. So if you would like to provide comments, please raise your hand and we will unmute your line, or you can use the question and answer function of the Zoom webinar and we can read your comments out loud. Stuart Jenkins, you are unmuted. So if you'll let us know your name and then who you represent and also what part of the rules or what specific feedback you have, that'd be great.
Hi, thank you so much. This is Stuart Jenkins. I'm the State Policy Manager with Healthier Colorado. Appreciate all your work on these rules. I'm here to provide comments related to the rules related to Senate Bill 22219 regarding dental therapists. There were a couple areas I just want to point out. I noticed that I think are absent from the rules, but were mentioned in the bill as places that would require rulemaking, and just want to make sure I was correct about that. So starting with page 66 of the rule document, it includes dental therapists within the fee schedule for dental hygienists, and I believe they should be a separate fine schedule for dental therapists because their maximum fine goes up to $4,000, whereas the dental hygienist just goes up to $3,000. So I think that would be broken up if I'm not mistaken. Then I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here. Second, on page 9, I think the language is not quite accurate and reflective of what's in the bill related to the dental therapist examination requirement. The last 2 lines of that, thank you for scrolling so quickly. So the way it reads in that last section, or successfully, just passed it. It is we're on page 9. Is that right? Oh, yeah, up above. Um, 1B, right there. So, so in the last 2 lines of 1B, it says, or successfully pass the examination administered by the Joint Commission on National Dental Examinations for Dental Hygienists. That, the way I read that assumes that if someone took that examination, that they would satisfy the entire examination requirement for dental therapy. And the way I read the bill is that if they took that examination of the Joint Commission for Dental Hygienists, they would just satisfy the dental hygiene portion of the dental therapy examination requirement. And so I think that just needs to be written a little bit differently. I'm happy to refer to the bill number or where that's kind of called out in the bill, if that's helpful.
So I'm understanding. So there's more of an examination they'd have to take in addition to what's listed here, is what you're trying to say. Like, this isn't the only examination.
That they have to take an examination that kind of includes multiple components, that covers dental therapy and dental hygiene skills. The kind of exception to this is if someone takes the dental hygiene, the board, national board exam for dental hygiene, that it satisfies the dental hygiene portion of the overall examination that an applicant for dental therapy license could complete. So there's still like a there's kind of 2 kinds of exam components to that, if that makes sense. What you're saying.
Yeah, there are multiple parts.
Yeah.
So that would satisfy the first part, essentially. Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you. And then 2 more things that I think were called out as to be created by rule in the bill, but are not mentioned in the rule itself, is waiver of practice, creating a waiver process for practice, satisfying the practice hours to be able to practice under indirect supervision of a dentist. So I'm not sure what this would qualify under in the rule itself, but I'm referring to section 12, 220, 508, 1E. Within the bill itself. I don't have that page number offhand, but I can find that. So I think there should be some process within the some rule within this draft that spells out that waiver process, I believe.
Okay, that's helpful. We can make a note of that. Elena, if you just want to go to the dental therapy section of the licensure and then make a note of that statutory citation, and then we'll take a look at that. If you don't mind repeating the statute again, that you were a section of the.
Certainly. 12, 220, 508, 1E. One E is an echo. And then my last call out, appreciate your time, is again, I think there should be some stipulation within this rule about a waiver process of the dentist supervision limit of dental therapists. And just a rule needed to comply with that section of the bill. And that section number is 12.220.508.3C, as in Charlie. Thank you so much. And the last thing, I think I don't know if anyone else may have caught this, and there's so many like little places where I saw this that happy to share offline is, I think, some areas where the word dental therapy or dental therapist could be added that was missed, and maybe I was a little too focused on that, but thought that there just might be areas to add that language as you've done throughout the rule. So I'd happy to do that offline.
Yeah, that's helpful. And if you want to submit any of that in writing, you're welcome to do that to the rulemaking inbox, which is and we'll drop it into the chat, but that's the Dora_DPO_rulemaking@state.co.us. Your comments are exactly what we need. So, and I appreciate you taking the time to go through the rules so closely. This is why we have stakeholder engagement. So if you think of anything else, feel free to raise your hand again. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and place you back on mute, and then we'll move on to the next person.
Thank you.
Leah Schultz, I have unmuted you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Dr. Leah Schultz. I'm a general dentist with Salud Family Health, and I'm here today as the president-elect of the Colorado Dental Association and a member of the Colorado Dental Association's Government Relations Council. So the Colorado Dental Association has a couple of comments to offer on proposed rules for the dental therapy practice. The first of which is around continuing education. So if you want to start scrolling to Rule 1.6, Section H. So we believe that the providers of continuing education required for dental therapists should be aligned with the providers allowed for dentists, at least to start. So that's in Part 7 of Rule 1.6, Section H on page 15. It could create a higher workload for the dental board and needing to review each course taken by a dental therapist for a case-by-case approval. So we think it's best to remove Part 7 from the proposed rule for now. And then on Part 5, on page 14, I think should be a good starting point for approved.
Dr. Schultz, I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're just going to make a note here under to remove subsection 7, and then we'll have you go on to your next comment, just so we don't, we can make sure we keep up with you.
Yeah, thanks. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Good morning, this is Elena. I just wanted to make sure I'm capturing your comment correctly. If you could just repeat the basis of that comment for section 7.
Sure, so we just feel like the current language in this section could create a high workload for the dental board in needing to review each course taken by a dental therapist for a case-by-case approval, which is why we're recommending to remove this section, particularly because Part 5 on page 14 already has a good starting point for approved CE courses for dentists, which could apply to dental therapists also.
Thank you.
Yes. So, if there is a demonstrated need to expand the CE offerings in the future for dental therapists, once the licensing and renewal processes begin, we felt like the board could revisit these expansions at that time.
Great, thank you.
Yes, and then my second comment has to do with on page 60, Rule 1.8 in relationship to practice ownership. So we felt as though some of the references in this section could be read to imply that a dental therapist may own a separate practice. The Senate Bill 22-219 did not authorize separate practice ownership for dental therapists. So the section referenced to dental therapists in, I'll let you get there so that we can all read it together. So we're looking at Rule 1.18 on page 60. Um,
1.18, Elena, sorry, not 1.8, 1.18.
Yes.
My apologies.
Almost there. Yep. So on page 60, I'm looking particularly at sections C and E, where again, the bill did not authorize separate practice ownership for dental therapists, but in these two sections, C and E, we're recommending that dental therapists be removed since dental therapists cannot own a separate dental therapy practice. And then in the same section on section F, subpoint 3, we may need to offer some clarification there because again, it alludes to or implies, separate practice ownership. So the CDA is happy to submit written comments and suggestions on proposed language to address these cleanups if there is a process for doing so.
Yes, please do. And hopefully you received the email address in the chat. It's also posted on all of our notices and sent out with all of our emails. And that's the Dora_DPO_rulemaking@state.co.us. Great. Oh, we always accept written comments as well. And we will post those on the board's website too. Everything gets posted under the public notices tab so that you can see other comments that are submitted by stakeholders.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. And I apologize, I don't know titles unless it's a familiar name or that I've recognized. So Dr. Schultz, I'll remember that. And then I know Dr. Jeff Call from previous stakeholder meetings. I have unmuted you, Dr. Call.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Jeff Call. I'm a pediatric dentist. I'm here as a representative of the Colorado Dental Association. I'm a member of their Governmental Relations Council. And then I'm also here on behalf of the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry as their state public policy advocate. So we have some questions with regard to the scope and alignment with authorizing laws on a few of the proposed rules for dentists, actually. So on page 4, Rule 1.6, Section A, number 10. That's way back there, so I'll let you get to it. Page 4. This is the section on portability and foreign trained dentists. So yeah, part 10 there. So, I mean, we're intrigued with the portability options outlined for foreign trained dentists, but it's not clear if this kind of flexibility can be granted under current statute in Colorado, which requires defined accredited training for dentists. And to this point, currently academic dentist licensure is allowed in Colorado and is a pathway created for foreign trained dentists to practice in the state. But unless the foreign trained dentist completes a CODA accredited degree conversion program, which is currently required for full dentist licensure in CRS 1222-401, Section 1B, so in statute. The way this is worded, it makes it sound like a foreign trained dentist could have an academic license and then do their conversion by reciprocity, which would not be legal under current statute. So I think portability is great. I don't know that the intention was to allow that particular track.
So Dr. Call, are you suggesting striking the added language and then about the exception?
Yes, I mean, we can send you some comment on this too, but I just think it needs to be reworded.
Okay.
So, I mean, the door part's fine, but the exception via endorsement with the 5 years of continuous full-time dentistry work while practicing in another U.S. state, you could potentially have an academic license in another U.S. state for 5 years and not have completed a CODA accredited educational program. So it's a way to circumvent the required CODA conversion that's in statute.
I hear what you're saying, right? And the Occupational Credential Portability Program allows someone to get licensed in Colorado with substantially equivalent experience or credentials, and then there's still a basis for denial if they don't have the education required by statute. So I hear what you're saying for sure. And we would be open to suggested language to take that to the board.
Okay. I just think, yeah, if it said something to the effect that 5 years of continuous full-time dentistry work experience practicing in another state, but then you still have to have completed a CODA accredited program before practicing in another state. So we're all for portability, but also, you know, statute in Colorado requires that educational component.
Okay.
My second question is actually on page 76. This is Rule 132 on reproductive health care. So it's kind of confusing as to how this is relevant to the practice of dentistry. So medical reproductive healthcare services are not really in the scope of practice for dentists, and we're not aware of any scientific basis for any differential care or services for patients who have had pregnancy loss or pregnancy termination services. So we don't really see the relevance of this rule to dental practice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really clear why this was inserted in the Dental Practice Act.
Okay, we'll flag your questions, and it's not in the Practice Act, but in the rule in compliance with the governor's executive orders.
Right. It doesn't seem relevant. Okay, so my next question is on page 78, Rule 1.33. This is allowing, this is the section that talks about marijuana use in the workplace. And the question is really, are other healthcare provider boards adopting rules identical to this proposed rule? It seems like this rule could conflict with existing statute, CRS 12-220-201, Section 1, Part D through F, and Part J, addressing disciplinary action for possession, use, or misuse of certain drugs and controlled substances in dentistry. There's also nothing proposed in this rule that addresses impairment at work, which could result in critical public safety issues in a profession like dentistry.
So to your first question, yes, this rule is consistent with what other boards and programs are adopting. And then to the second question, this is about licensing. So this is if someone's applying for licensure in Colorado and has a conviction related to marijuana that doesn't otherwise violate the law in Colorado, then the board will be handling those applications in accordance with this rule. So as far as impairment at work, the other statutes of the Practice Act still apply. This is only related to licensure.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. Did you need that section that I know you started to type?
No, you're talking about grounds for discipline. I think we're okay there. Because like I said, this is only if someone's applying and has a conviction, a marijuana related conviction in another state where it's otherwise legal in Colorado, then the
Okay.
board will be viewing that application.
We just wanted to make sure that this wasn't a way to allow for impairment at work for both, dentists and their employees without some sort of, again, I think you answered my question. I have one final question. On page 78 again, or 78, proposed rule 134 regarding out-of-network billing. This section, it doesn't appear to clearly distinguish between providers at covered facilities like hospitals and surgery centers and private provider offices, which are not subject to all of the balance billing limitations of House Bill 22-1284. So the rule is written, and particularly the notice on page 82 in Appendix B, could be confusing to dentists and members of the public about when balance billing is restricted and create expectations about payment for out-of-network services that may not apply with many dental plans and providers. So it'd be helpful if Dora could make the rule much more clear for providers about the locations in which the balance billing limitations apply.
Do you have suggestions on that? And to give you a little bit more background, so the appendix that you're seeing is the sample appendix that was issued by the federal government. And so this legislation was to align the state law with the No Surprises Act. In part, that's a summary, my summary. But that's why we're proposing that appendix. I hear what you're saying. So CDPHE, of course, will handle the rulemaking for facilities. This is just related to providers and what's required as far as disclosures are concerned by providers. But if you have language that could help us clarify the rule, we would certainly appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and we could certainly submit something, but my understanding of the bill itself was that it's for, the situation that was touted on the Hill a lot was, you're having an emergency procedure done at a hospital and your anesthesiologist just happens to be out of network. So it protects you from balance billing when you're in a facility that is an in-network facility. But the way that this is written, it makes it sound like every private practice in Colorado outside of hospital ambulatory centers is subjected to the same oversight, and so would be required to list on their website, every insurance that they're a network for, which gets kind of convoluted sometimes the way that network overlap happens, and certain dental insurers in particular will lease out part of their networks or different things like that. And so we just want to make sure that, that it's really clarified where that line is drawn, if that makes sense.
Yes, and you're saying if it's a private practice, they're generally not generally not balance billing, and they're not out of network, and so they may not need to be providing that.
Well, they may be out of network, but I don't think that they necessarily fall under this.
Okay.
But we can look at this and send you some specific suggestions to really draw that line. We just wanted to bring up that point that as written right now, it sounds like it applies to every dentist.
Okay.
Regardless of where they're practicing.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Call. I'm going to go ahead and place you back on mute. And then we have Karen Foster. I have unmuted you.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Karen Foster. I'm also a pediatric dentist, and I am a member of the Colorado Dental Association Government Relations Council. The only other section that we may have some concerns with is 1.22, the use of lasers. Right now, the CDA is still considering whether the rule on use of lasers should be further adjusted. Oh, sorry, I'll let you get there. To better distinguish between scope of practice for dental hygienists and dental therapists. We'll submit additional comments in writing with our suggestions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Dr. Foster, I will place you back on mute. Dr. Call, I see your hand is raised. I'm not sure if that's from before. Okay, great. I see you lowered it. We haven't gotten any written comments in the Q&A, and I don't see any other raised hands, so we'll go ahead and wait here. Stuart Jenkins, I have unmuted you.
Thank you. The representative from CDA, a couple people back, the first woman who spoke, I apologize, I forget her name, but she made me think of one other reference to dental therapists that may also kind of conflict with that understanding that dental therapists shouldn't be able to own their own practice. And that's on the very first page of the rule, 1.4 under definitions, part B. On the very first page. Yes. So under part B, so on the second line, it references dental therapists and it says among those professions is the proprietor. And I was wondering if that reference to dental therapists should be stricken there, given the relationship to the proprietor. But I'm curious if CDA agrees with that or not. So I just want to call that out.
No, I appreciate that. So we'll make a note there of your suggestion, and we can get additional comments on that as well. Dr. Call, I've unmuted you.
I was just going to jump in and say I agree with Stuart on that point.
Great, thank you.
Legislation doesn't allow for them to be the proprietor or an office.
Holly Kingsbury, you are unmuted.
Great, thank you. I'm Holly Kingsbury with the Colorado Community Health Network. And in section 1.25 on page 69, I think I see that there's already a comment there to this effect, but one thing that we wanted to better understand was what the requirements will be for dental therapists in placing an interim therapeutic restoration, if there will be like a separate process, or if this is something that's, you know, part of their existing training. So just want to echo that it would be important to distinguish if there are separate requirements for dental hygienists and dental therapists for that.
Do you have a suggestion either way?
I don't at this moment, but we could talk to the clinicians that we work with.
Okay.
And provide one in writing.
Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, I'm going to place you back on mute. Dr. Call, I have unmuted you.
In regard to interim therapeutic restorations and dental therapists, we talked about this at the governmental relations level, the CDA. I don't think that dental therapists should need a separate credentialing process for interim therapeutic restorations. Their scope of care is much more complicated than that procedure itself. So I think it would be appropriate to just place that under their scope of care and not require a separate educational tract outside of what they're already getting.
Okay. Dr. Kingsbury, I see your hand is up, so I've unmuted you again.
Oh, sorry. I think I forgot to put it down. I'm not a dentist, but thank you.
Okay.
And thank you, Dr. Call, for noting that. That's helpful.
Alrighty, I will place you back on mute. Anyone else? Stuart Jenkins, I've unmuted you.
Thank you. And I would just agree with Dr. Call that the dental therapists should not need a separate educational training for this procedure as well. So.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and wait here for a couple more minutes to see if anyone else wants to provide any feedback today. Like we mentioned earlier, you can always submit written comments to Dora_DPO_rulemaking at state.co.us. That is in the chat, but we do have some people who are participating by phone, so I want to make sure that you can hear that. All information about rulemaking is posted on the board's website under the public notices tab. You can also find the Zoom information or meeting information when it gets posted on the board's calendar, the public calendar for Dora. And then we send a blast email to all licensees and other interested stakeholders in advance of meetings like today's meeting or the rulemaking hearing. So just wanted to remind you that's the same place as well where the recording of today's meeting will be posted in case you want to go back and listen to it and provide additional feedback. Dylan Mitchell, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is actually Jennifer Goodrum. Somehow I must have logged in on my colleague's account. So apologies.
No problem.
So Jennifer Goodrum on behalf of the CDA. I just want to ask a quick question, Darcy, in terms of process. I think Stuart Jenkins noted a couple of areas of rulemaking that may need to be relooked at in terms of some areas of proposed rule, that we did not cover. There's this ITR section in the rule that may have some updates or changes. Will there be another version of these rules shared, especially with some of those substantial changes potentially being made and some new rules being proposed before we get to the November date and maybe another stakeholder meeting? I don't know what you guys have in mind in terms of process.
We can definitely look at that. We can also resend the rules. Just trying to think. I mean, the good news is we have a bit of time between now and November. Mm-hmm. So if there are questions, I'll probably chat with UConn. The thing is, the board won't see these rules until November, right? They have their, since they're on the quarterly schedule. So we can definitely look at another stakeholder meeting if you think that would be helpful. And then we can keep posting the rules as they get modified on the board's website. And then if you have more questions, you're always welcome to reach out to that rulemaking inbox. Sorry, just trying to think about things.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, just from a process end, I would think that it would be helpful. I mean, I think the CDA has mentioned they'll probably submit some written comments. It sounds like some other stakeholders may as well. But like if there's substantial changes to the rule, I think it would be helpful to the stakeholder community to be able to have a chance to review those and provide input before we get to that note, or at least, be able to provide it by the time we get to that November meeting. So we're not seeing it for the first time there. So yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, we don't want any surprises.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that works. And then we'll keep, like I said, keep checking on the website for the stakeholder comments. We'll post those. And we can update the link as we get more comments in. So it's not like we would be shooting them out every single time, because we get complaints too that we send too many emails. But as comments come in, we can refresh that link on the website.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I think, the big thing is if there's actually draft rules written around some of the supervision waivers and some of the pieces that didn't come in terms of just the credentialing hours that are required in supervised practice, things like that. I think there'd want to be the opportunity for the broader stakeholder community to review and give some feedback on that at some point
For sure.
prior to November. So yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Stuart Jenkins, I have unmuted you.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo my agreement with Jennifer's comments. I think another stakeholder meeting would be helpful, and the opportunity to review these substantial changes to the rule after they've been made would be helpful in advance of that November meeting. So just wanted to share my agreement.
Great, I appreciate it. So we will work on that, get these draft rules updated. Keep an eye out for your written comments, and a couple of you said you were going to submit written comments, and then probably get something scheduled either in October. I would not want to do it early November, just given the timeline of the hearing. So thank you for that. Okay. Well, I don't see any other written hands, and we haven't received any written comments. So I think I'll go ahead and wrap up, and we'll check one last time in case we get a last minute hand raised. Thank you for participating in today's meeting. All comments and recommendations will be provided to the Colorado Dental Board for review and consideration before the permanent rulemaking hearing, which is tentatively scheduled for November 3rd, 2022. For some reason, I was thinking it was the third week. I'm confusing it with medical. So yes, we will not be having a stakeholder meeting before the meeting on November 3rd in November. So we'll be looking at October. That concludes this stakeholder meeting, and we thank you for your attendance and participation.